All right, welcome back. This is episode 14 of the Heated Exchange, brought to you by Blitz League. It is a beautiful day here in Bloomington, Indiana. Jett, how is it by your neck of the woods?
It's very nice here down in Tampa, Florida. Not sunny, Florida, as we're accustomed to. It's getting a little chilly here as we get into the winter months. But this football season is coming along quickly. We're already heading into week number 10, double digits already. It feels like this season has just started. It feels like we were just talking about preparing for your drafts not too long ago, but we're coming down to the end of the fantasy football season, and we're excited to be with you guys for another week.
Absolutely. Now, we have a lot to discuss today. Very exciting topics, a lot of buzz happening around the league right now. So, Jay, you want to get into what we're going to be talking about today?
Yeah, we'll start off as always with an update on the Blitz League Fantasy League. We have a little more shift in this league. A lot of positives coming from my end. Maybe Austin's team is finally falling apart like I expected weeks ago.
Yeah.
Then we'll bring back a question of the day. We're going to look at one of the skill positions to see who we think is going to fall out of the top 5, if anybody, and who we think could potentially emerge into the top 5 as we hit the second half of the NFL season. Then we're going to get into George Kittle. Is he officially back, here to stay amongst the top tight ends in not only fantasy, but in the league as well? Odell Beckham Jr. has officially narrowed down his list of teams that he prefer to go to. Do I believe the Saints, Packers, and Patriots? We'll get into where we think the best potential destination is for him for fantasy purposes. And then finally, we'll get into some over-unders for the weekend. I'll give Austin some Yahoo Fantasy projection totals for some big-name players throughout the course for this week 10. And Austin will let me know if he thinks they will go over or under that number. Ready to get started, Austin?
Yes, sir. I'm ready.
All right, let's get right into the Sleeper League. I'll really talk about my team first because I have a lot I want to talk about. I'm on a 4-game winning streak after a lot was being said about how I was not going to have any success in the league after I started 0-5. Anything can happen in fantasy football, and I went out and I made a bunch of moves to make my team better. And now I am on a 4-game winning streak, and I'm still in last place in the division just because of how competitive division number 2 is, with Ashton in first place, Austin in second, Ryan in third, Jack in fourth, and myself in fifth. But now I'm only 1 point behind my co-host, Austin. Austin, how are you feeling so far?
Obviously, I should be in first at the moment. For my little blunder a couple weeks ago, by not taking out Shepard when he was declared out. But look, I'm still 6-3 at the moment. My team lately has not performed as well as they were at the beginning of the season. Kelsey's still not putting up Kelsey numbers, even though we found the end zone last week. Cooper, had a down week, and the whole Cowboys team last week had a down week. Kyler Murray was out, which hurt me a little bit. Not having Fournette in the game. So, I guess considering the circumstances, my team is playing well as they can, but so I can't really complain still. I'm 6-3, and I'm projected to win this week, and I think my team will get back on track in terms of scoring a little more finally. I feel like I haven't crossed the 150-point barrier in a year. So hopefully this is the week. But Jett, normally I like to roast you a little bit for how bad your team is, but you got to respect it. You're on a 4-game win streak right now, so I'm more curious. What's been the change with your team? What's going on?
Yeah, well, I think I mentioned back on the podcast several weeks back when I made some of those key trades. One trade I acquired James Robinson, Lamar Jackson, and Marquise Brown. Another trade I acquired Stephon Diggs. So now, right now, and last week I got helped a lot. Austin can speak for this as well in another league. James Conner went off last week. He was in my RB2 spot due to James Robinson being out. It's very nice to have him in my lineup now. But my lineup right now is, when fully healthy, it's going to be Josh Allen, Austin Eckler, James Robinson, Stephon Diggs, T. Higgins, TJ Hawkinson, Marquise Brown, James Conner, and Lamar Jackson. I like where this team is headed, and hopefully the momentum doesn't come to an end.
And now, speaking of James Conner, quickly, what are your thoughts on him right now in terms of his fantasy value at the moment? Where do you see him?
We briefly touched on this a little before we got on air. I think he is a solid probably high end RB2 now, with especially Chase Edmonds out for the foreseeable future. If Kyler Murray misses any more time, his value could touch RB1 territory. The thing with James Conner is, yeah, he got 20 plus carries last week, and he was the most active we've seen in the receiving game due to Chase Edmonds leaving the game. He had 5 receptions for 77 yards. He had a total of 3 touchdowns. He may not be as touchdown dependent as we saw now, because now that Edmonds isn't in the fold, Conner is going to be getting that receiving work. So he is a definite must start for the foreseeable future. What do you think, Austin?
Well, I'm on the same page as you. He definitely is a high-end RB2. I'd even say a low-end RB1 right now. With Edmonds being out, Murray's still battling injury. I've heard he's made tremendous strides so far in his recovery, but those injuries don't really go away in the middle of the season when you get a hit every week. But right now, at least with Edmonds out, James Conner should be locked in every single lineup, unless you're in like a 4-man league. But he should be locked in as your RB2. He can even be your RB1 if certain guys are on bye. Right now, I expect his workload to be exactly what it was last week. He should be getting 20 plus carries a game. He's definitely going to see a little more work on the receiving end. I'm excited for him at the moment. Right now, until Edmonds comes back, until Murray's back to being Murray, I'm just going to ride the, James Conner wave and hope for the best.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think we're both on the same page there. Now, I kind of want to, before we get into the meat of the show, something that I don't want us to fall under the radar here. We picked games off camera last week, and you didn't get to hear what our picks were. And I just want to let everybody know about the records for the past week in picks. Austin went 7-7, bringing his total to a record of 15-14. I went 9-5 with a total record of 19-10. One thing I want to talk about, though, is my upset of the week. The Tennessee Titans took down the Los Angeles Rams. Yeah, 99.9%. Hold it, go ahead.
You phrased it wrong. The Titans did not beat the Rams. The Rams beat the Rams. Let's get one thing straight here. The Titans did nothing special in that game. I don't know who the Rams were playing. I don't even know if that was the Rams out there, because that was not the Rams that we've seen all year.
It was not the Rams we've seen all year, but according to their uniform, according to the box score, according to the players on that field, it was the Los Angeles Rams. And on this podcast, episode number 13, I picked the Tennessee Titans when very few people. Honestly, I should have went to Vegas. I wouldn't even need this podcast right now if I would have went to Vegas. And
takes one upset. Now he thinks he's all that. Need break.
Who was do you remember what your upset of the week was? I forget.
I actually forget too. I don't really need to.
I believe it was the I want to say it was
the Giants.
Yeah, I think it was the Giants.
Nah, you're
the Raiders.
My New York Giants. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's what we do. That's what we do. That's business.
Yeah, so then I'll give Austin his extra point, and then he gets he goes to a record of 16-14, still trailing me by about 4.5 games. So
all good. We got a long season left.
Yeah, we'll let everybody know what our picks are for next episode. We're not going to do game by game on here, but we will keep everyone updated on that. And obviously, there is going to be a winner at the end of the season, and there is going to be a loser. So right now, things are going well for me. Let's hope this continues. All right, let's move on to another topic. We are going to talk about George Kittle. He is officially back from injury after missing several of the last, really a bulk of the season. He had missed from week 5 onto week number 8. He returned obviously in week 9, and he finished as the tight end 2 last week with 6 receptions, 101 yards, and 1 touchdown. Actually, his first touchdown on the year. Austin, is it safe to say that we can put George Kittle back in that top 3 tight end conversation the rest of the year?
Yes, absolutely. Last week showed it. They finally started using him the way I've been wanting them to use him. I guess, having some time off to take care of his injuries has really helped him. He looked a lot better last week. He was running a lot better. He was cutting a lot better than I've seen in recent weeks, at the beginning of the season. Garoppolo was looking for him all game. It also didn't hurt that they were playing catch up the whole game, so they had to throw. And honestly, if that's the case with them, then obviously Kittle is going to see a lot of work. So I think he's back, and he's a top 3 tight end right now.
Yeah, he didn't really show any signs of rust. He looks good to go the rest of the year. He is definitely someone that, if you were looking to fill your tight end spot before he came back before this game, that would have definitely been a good buy low if you had done so. I think looking at the tight end position as a whole, he should have no problem finishing in the top 3 second half of the year. He does obviously have a lot of ground to make up just because he did miss several games. But the next question, Austin, I'll ask you, now that you think George Kittle will be in the top 3, right now the top 5 is Kelsey, Mark Andrews, Gesicki, Hawkinson, and Waller. If Kittle were to get into that top 3, top 5, who do you think's the odd man out?
I'm going to have to go with Mike Gesicki. Will be out of that, unfortunately. And I love Gesicki, but Kittle's just a much better tight end. And I'm going to have to go with Hawkinson. It's for the simple reason being he's on an awful offense. Really, when you play the Lions, all you got to really focus on is keeping Hawkinson out of the game and keeping Swift out of the game. Right. And so because of that, I just think Kittle's going to sneak in.
Yeah, I mean, he obviously, like I said, he is right now, he's the tight end 19, and that's with only 4 games. I mean, that just shows you how weak the tight end position is. Right now, he is about 40 points away from tight end 5, which is Darren Waller. So he definitely has the ability to make a background, especially with some of the big games we've seen from him in the past. Another thing, let's move on to, I forgot to mention this, our question of the day is back, and I want to really focus on the wide receiver position for this question. Right now, the top 5 is Cooper Kupp, Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, Debo Samuel, and Devontae Adams. Cooper Kupp is the clear number 1 by over 50 points, with Cooper Kupp having 235 to Tyreek Hill's 185. He is definitely going to be in the top 5, barring any injury the rest of the way. But Austin, my question to you would be, of the other 4, who do you think would be the odd man out to finish outside the top 5? And if there's anyone you could think of who could crack the top 5?
Right now, and I hate to say it, but I believe we've seen him cool down a little bit, and I think you'll start seeing it. Jamar Chase, he is an electric receiver, but the Bengals right now are struggling. They have, ever since their big win against Baltimore, we have seen this team crumble a little bit, losing to the Jets, now getting blown out last week against the Browns, who were, just dealing with the Odell situation. Fact is, Jamar Chase, he is a top talent in the league, but that whole team's a little out of it, and we've seen his numbers go down as of late. And frankly, I don't see him finishing in the top 5. If there was one guy to finish out, it would be him. Would it surprise me if he did finish out the top 5? Yes. But I think the one guy that I think can sneak in there, honestly, right now, well, actually, name me who's 6 through 10 at the moment.
Right now, 6 through 10 in this order is Marquise Brown, Michael Pittman Jr., DK Metcalf, Chris Godwin, and Mike Evans.
So my guy to sneak in there would be Michael Pittman. He has become like I said recently, he is the wide receiver one on that team. He's a top receiver in this league right now. Wentz loves going to him, and that volume has been there every single week. And I think he's the most dangerous candidate, even more than DK, only because we don't really know how Russ is going to do when he comes back. I know he's cleared to play, I believe, this week.
Yes.
But still, we have no clue how he's going to do coming off an injury like that. If he's rusty, so right now, give me Michael Pittman.
I think you're wrong to think that Jamar Chase is going to fall out of the top 5. I get what you're saying about the Bengals struggling as of late, but one thing that Jamar Chase has shown more of is his ability. His targets have gone up in recent weeks. When we saw in the beginning of the year where he was getting 4 or 5 targets a game, this past week he had 13. The week before he had 9. The week before that he had 10. I just think he's too good to be stopped, and I just think he's too good to potentially fall out of the top 5. I think a better pick for someone to fall out of the top 5 is Debo Samuel. We mentioned this 49ers offense now with George Kittle back. Debo Samuel had 5 receptions on 9 targets for 11 fantasy points last week. Kittle's going to steal some of that work. We're seeing Brandon Ayuk emerge now after we saw him had a great rookie season. Maybe he's going to start to return back to form. Obviously, Jimmy G loves to target Debo Samuel, and he's had a fantastic start to the season. But with there being reemergence of Kittle and these other weapons on this 49ers offense, I just don't think this production as the wide receiver 4 in the year will be sustainable. I think for me, the obvious candidate to pull back into the top 5 would be DK Metcalf. I know Austin mentioned him before. Even with Geno Smith at quarterback, DK Metcalf was still having productive outings. He had a 22-point game, an 18-point game, a 12-point game. I think he is good with no matter who the quarterback is, and Russell Wilson is only going to make him better, and he should propel him right back into the top 5 because he's only 10 points out right now. So
we'll see. It'll be tight though, and I like that the wide receiver race is close.
Yes,
should be interesting to see who finishes the top 5 down the stretch.
Yeah, it's very interesting between the wide receiver 17 and the wide receiver 5. It's a 24-point difference.
Wow, that's actually really cool to hear.
Yeah, and it's right now the top Cup at 235, Hill at 185, and then the field because Chase is next at 30 at 168. So it's
also keep in mind Cooper Kupp has not had his bye week yet. So
that is true. I mean, Tyreek Hill has not either. A couple other guys on that list have not, but yeah, Cooper Kupp is just on another planet.
He's on another. I mean, even last week, last Sunday night, I thought that was a down game for him, and he still eclipsed the 20-point barrier. So I mean, that's freaky.
Yeah.
Well, I think he had like 11 catches for 90 yards.
11 catches for 95 yards on 13 targets, 21 fantasy points. Didn't even find the end zone.
Unbelievable I considered last Sunday a down week for him. He just didn't seem like a typical Cooper Kupp game. And he's, just still with those numbers. That's amazing.
Yeah.
But it also, a guy I want to talk about quickly though. Robert Woods.
Yes.
The resurgence of Robert Woods. He's finally playing kind of how I argued that he would at the beginning of the year. I thought he'd be doing this. Obviously, again, I didn't think Kupp would be doing this. But Robert Woods has been finding himself lately, and Stafford's been finding him as well. What do you have to say about that?
Quietly, he's been doing this because I looked today and I was surprised to see that he's currently the wide receiver 12 on the year. And he hasn't had a game under 10 points since week number 3. And he clearly is, making up for some of the hate we were giving him early on in the season. He's returning some of that draft capital that we pegged him to be at wide receiver number 12, currently on the year right now. If you have him on your team and you've held out throughout the course of the season, that's a job well done because he's definitely returning some of that value.
Absolutely. I'm excited for him down the stretch. But anyway, what do we got going next?
Yeah, let's turn our focus to another wide receiver that recently got cut by the Cleveland Browns. Odell Beckham Jr. is now a free agent, and he has the ability to sign with the team of his choosing. Obviously, the team has to agree since he did go unclaimed on waivers. Right now, the top 3 candidates to sign him are the Packers, Chiefs, and Saints. Those are Odell's preferred destinations. I think all 3 of those teams would be a great fit. Maybe one more than the other for fantasy purposes. But Austin, out of those teams, who do you think would be the best for fantasy purposes? And do you think Odell would even be productive on that team?
I think out of those 3, the best team for him, I believe, would be the Packers. The fact is, they have Devontae Adams, but other than that, there's not really another guy they like to throw to. Lazard's fine, but I mean, him versus Odell wasn't. I know Odell struggled the last few years on Cleveland, but it just didn't work for him. I know what he can do, being a Giants fan. I still think he's a top 5 talent in the league.
Really?
He just hasn't. I think in terms of pure skill and talent, I think Odell's there. It just hasn't worked for him with and Baker. So I'm happy that he's out, and I believe with a guy like Rodgers, I have no doubt if he ends up in Green Bay, you will see the old Odell Beckham back up again, which obviously may take away a little bit from Devontae, for sure. I believe Devontae Adams' targets will definitely go down, but either way, I believe both of those guys can end up being wide receiver ones together.
Yeah, I agree that the Packers are probably the best destination for fantasy purposes. The thing with Odell and the Browns is there was a lot of film out there where you saw Baker Mayfield either missing Odell where he was wide open or just throwing the ball not even in his direction when the ball was intended to him. And honestly, yes, Odell can't really stay healthy, but when he's on the field, he's still able to be one of the top wide receivers in this league. I think top 5 wide receiver talent is a little bit of a stretch, in my opinion.
We've seen what he can do in the past when he was actually featured on a team.
That brings me to this point. This is a little bit aside from fantasy football, but do you think if we didn't have the catch, do you think we would still be talking about Odell Beckham Jr. as much?
Absolutely. The catch put him on the news, but if people don't realize before that, he was putting up crazy numbers. Like, he was still balling out of his mind. Even after that catch, I mean, he wasn't having any really of those plays, but he was still putting up a gazillion yards a game. He was electric. No one can guard him, and we've seen it every year after that on the Giants. He was 1,000 yards every single year, couldn't be stopped, and even with a guy like an aging Eli, who obviously wasn't the same anymore, a line that could not protect him for more than a second. Odell was still getting his work in. So, no, I think the catch put him on TV, and it got the world, getting to know him and really seeing him. But the talent was always there, whether you caught that ball or not.
I disagree. I think that the catch is what made Odell, and yeah, he's had plenty of other spectacular performances aside from that one catch, but I mean, he hasn't been able to stay healthy. He's had issues with field goal nets on sidelines. He's had issues with other teammates and whatnot.
You had to go there. You really had to go there.
Partying in South Beach before a playoff game. I mean, the list goes on. He changes color hair every day. I mean, it's just, it's Odell. I mean, he's the catch. The catch is him, and there's really not much else to say.
Who has your best receiver been for the past 5 years?
Past 5. Well, we had Jarvis Landry, Devontae Parker. I mean,
how'd that work out for you?
Hey, Jarvis Landry was great with us. Obviously, he didn't have the catch like Odell did, so he's not really remembered as much down here in South Florida. But if he had that same play, we would be thinking the same thing of him right now.
But he didn't, because Odell's better, and it's that simple. Odell's a better receiver. He's so top talent in the league.
The best ability is availability. So,
not always, but I see what you're saying, and I like how you try to sound smart there. It's very funny. I want to sound all intelligent. That's great. But either way, Odell, frankly, I think a team. It would not shock me if he went to a team like New England. I think he would really benefit there. They actually have a very good O-line. Mac Jones really hasn't had a receiver to throw to. Like, Jacoby Myers has been decent all year, but still there's no there's no wide receiver one that he could just look to. I think Odell in New England in that system, they'd have no choice but to feature him. I think he'd thrive most there, but I think you have the best chance to win a championship on Green Bay.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I think if he wants to win a championship, Green Bay is the place for him. I think in general, I think Green Bay is the best destination for him, not only for fantasy purposes, reality as well.
Out of those three teams that you named before, or in like general?
I think in general, I think that's the best fit for him. I do.
I would say that honestly, I'd probably say that then over New England. I think New England would be a great fit for him, but I think just having Rodgers, obviously, I mean, can't go wrong with having.
Yeah, one thing. Yeah, one thing I will say, I noticed in a lot of my leagues that Odell was dropped, and I highly recommend if he was dropped in your league to pick him up right this minute. Pause the podcast, go pick him up, get him on your team, because if he lands with someone like Aaron Rodgers who can elevate his performance, he could easily be a solid wide receiver too and take away some of those targets from Davante Adams. However, I do think in the long run, I think it's only going to help Davante Adams.
Well, in terms, yes. Well, obviously, teams are going to have to focus on Odell a little more, and that also could help Adam to get open. So, well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. It should be very interesting. I'm on Twitter, every Twitter update I get now. I'm hoping it's Odell. I'm sure the whole country's on the same level as I am at the moment. So, only time will tell.
Yeah, I mean, one tweet says, "Oh, his preferred destination is the Saints." One tweet says the Packers, and then another one.
I even see Seattle.
Seattle's ball,
which would be ridiculous.
I don't think he would go to Seattle. I don't think he would.
Honestly, I don't know anything anymore. You can't trust anything until you can't
trust anybody except both of us when it comes to fantasy football advice.
Well, really me. But I guess you too. All
right, before we get out of here, just like we did on last week's episode, I think what Austin and I are going to do once again is, Austin, if you want to pull up the Week 10 NFL schedule, we are both going to pick our upsets of the week along with we'll pick the rest of the games once we get off the podcast here, and we will let everybody know how we both did when we get back for episode number 15. And yeah, I mean, I don't think this week's going to be as crazy as last week with the amount of upsets that we did see. I'm looking at the schedule right now. There's a lot of very small spreads. Austin, do you have anybody in mind that you would like to pick for your upset of the week?
My upset of the week, I have a couple options right now. I'm not as confident this week like I was last week with the Giants because spreads are a little different. But right now, I'm going to say the Las Vegas Raiders are going to upset the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football.
Really?
In Vegas. Yeah. In Vegas. I think that's an upset that people can expect. And in addition to that, I'm going to say the Falcons could possibly upset Dallas.
Really? Even after Dallas is coming off that game?
Dallas looked beatable last week, clearly. Obviously, I know they got killed, but they looked beatable. And Falcons are one of those teams, they can score. They can score. They can have one of those weeks where they just put up a lot of points. Obviously, I know Calvin Ridley's out. And obviously, hope he's recovering well. Hope he's working on his mind. But I wouldn't shock me if the Falcons somehow pulled it out.
This is a tough one because there's a few options I'm looking at here. My Dolphins could potentially upset the Ravens on Thursday Night Football.
Stop it.
Could we see the I said I'm thinking about it. Like, give me a second.
The Lions? Oh my god.
Could we see the Lions get their first win coming off a bye traveling to Pittsburgh?
Against the Steelers?
Could we? Maybe.
No.
Let's see what else we have here.
You know what I could see? Philly taking down Denver. I could see it. Philly, I know last week Philly lost, but they have played a lot better as recently since they've started going to the run game a little more. Guys like Jordan Howard, Boston Scott, Gainwell. That's been a nice three-headed monster for Philly. And ever since they started putting the ball in the running back's hands a little more, their offense has gotten a lot better, and they've been a lot harder to beat. The Chargers, they barely won last week, and frankly, the Chargers should have won by at least 7. So I'm watch for Philly to upset Denver.
All right, I have my decision. It's not the Dolphins. It's not the Lions. My upset of the week is the New Orleans Saints over the Tennessee Titans. After I picked the Tennessee Titans as my upset of the week last week, I'm going to pick against them this week and say that Trevor Siemian or Taysom Hill, whoever's quarterbacking the Saints team, will lead this team on the road to Tennessee for a victory. Austin, what do you think of that?
I see it. Tennessee really did not impress me last week at all. They actually didn't look very good offensively. They just got fortunate that they picked off Stafford, I think, on their own side of the field twice.
Yeah.
On the Rams side of the field twice. That set them up for touchdowns each time, but they didn't look that impressive. So I could see it. Do I think it's going to happen? No. I think they still have too much talent on the offense. It's also hard going up against the Rams with top defense to look good offensively, and the Saints are not the Rams. But still, I can't argue for seeing that upset. It definitely is feasible. So I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah, lock it in. My upset of the week is the New Orleans Saints over the Tennessee Titans, and Austin's is
I'm taking the Raiders.
The Las Vegas Raiders over the Kansas City Chiefs. That will do it for episode number 14 of the Heated Exchange. We hope you guys are more informed when it comes to fantasy football and the NFL in general. We hope we got you more informed in setting your lineups this week, making those trades, setting those lineups, all of the above. Austin, anything to add before we get out of here?
As usual, check out blitzlytics.com. We're all posting articles every single week to help you win your fantasy leagues. And other than that, Jett, finish it off.
Yeah, if you cannot handle the heat, get out of the kitchen.
Damn right.
Thank you, guys. We will see you next time.
See you guys.